Hello, everyone. Happy Pride. Welcome to Not a Lonely Coffee Break. We are your hosts. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Megan.
We are so excited to have you guys here with us. Today, we thought we would kind of talk a little bit about Pride. What are some things that we are proud of, excited about, and what Pride means to us in the workplace. I
Yes.
thought that it would be really cool to share something sort of historical.
Right.
So, you know how we have the abbreviation, the
Uh-huh.
LGBTQ plus abbreviation.
Yeah.
Do you know why the L is placed first in
You
that
know,
abbreviation?
I don't think so. I think it's come and passed my mind, through shower thoughts, and you're just kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
or driving, and you're like, why is that? And then I just didn't quite get to it. So, yes,
Mm-hmm.
Maddie, enlighten me. I would like to know.
No, yeah, I think that's why I was so like excited when I stumbled upon this information because I
Mm-hmm.
had never really stopped to think about it. I was always just like LGBT, LGBT.
Well, I thought it was a
Um,
woman thing, because, in the past, like, do you put women first or men first? And
mhm,
it's kind of like, is it like a feminist movement thing? So, yeah, I'm really
mhm.
interested. Let's hear this.
So early on in the gay rights movement, mainly, I guess you could really think about it more in terms of like the 1970s. And prior to that even. And there's been a couple of iterations of how other people refer to members of the community. Some of it obviously did not age well for good reason.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so there was this sort of big divide at the time between gay men and everyone else in the community, but mainly lesbians. And the big thing was that lesbians did not feel as connected to sort of the culture and
Mm-hmm.
gay men because they felt like they were being excluded from a lot of the conversation, a lot of the spaces. And early on, there was a lot of bar scenes, right? It was a lot
Right.
of bars and social spaces, and there weren't specifically spaces designed for lesbians. And you can also include trans individuals in that narrative as well. There was
Right.
also even still, there's a big exclusion with the trans
Mm-hmm.
community, but they were missing from all of these conversations. And then in 1970-ish is when sort of that first iteration sort of came about. And it actually, and I don't know, some of our listeners who are Gen X or older might even remember a time when the abbreviations were GLBT.
No.
Every now and then I still come across places that say that, and I'm like, it looks weird because I am
Yeah.
so used to the LGBT.
Right.
So it started out as GLBT,
Mm-hmm.
and that actually created even more feelings of exclusion.
Right. Who's a part of these conversations and who's leading them?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
And so where we started to see a shift was surprisingly during the AIDS epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
So during the AIDS epidemic, we saw a lot of gay men who were dying from AIDS or
Right.
testing positive for HIV. And many of these individuals did not have a family to support them, a family to be with them and care for them and provide the kind of care that they needed as they were coming to the end of their life
Right.
or dealing with this huge diagnosis that was going on. And so it was actually the lesbians who stepped up
Mm.
and became sort of the caregivers for
Wow.
the gay men. They were the ones who were donating blood. They were providing, in some cases, they were providing food, shelter. Some of them were even sort of stepping in, if they were the medical professionals, if they
Mm-hmm.
were the nurses, the doctors, they were the ones who were stepping up to provide that care because, the AIDS epidemic, when it first sort of hit, there was a lot of uncertainty
Yeah,
and
there was a lot of
people,
fear socially.
right,
Yeah, like
people
they
people
didn't
did
know.
not want to
Mm-hmm.
take care of of people
Right.
who had AIDS.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was the lesbians who sort of said, we will step up and
That's
we will
amazing.
help these individuals. We will take care of them. So that was sort of the big shift, because then we started seeing that leaders within the community were saying they wanted that we should place the L more in the forefront to honor these unsung heroes of the
Right.
AIDS epidemic. And it was also sort of a shift in that even gay men were understanding a little bit more about some of the feminist ideologies that a lot of the lesbians during that time were starting to align with,
Right.
politically, socially, all of that. And so we were starting to see that shift in that idea that you saw earlier.
For someone who came from like a conservative background, right? You don't really you hear most like, the Stonewall riots and then the marches that preceded it, but you don't really like get a lot of history unless it's something you, like I said, like I mean before I thought about it, but did I take the initiative to really be like, okay, well, how did this come to be? So that's really important, especially moving forward, especially as like leaders, people in the community, even if you're not a part of the LGBTQ community, like how important that might be to know, even as we look at other like ethnic cultural histories as well.
Absolutely.
It's just part of the equality fights and equity fights that we've been doing for the last, I don't know, 50, 60 years. And then it's still a battle in the workplace. I mean, like you said, the transgender folks, they're not always as represented in these talks. And when we are representing in these talks, is because there's already so much negative policies against them. And then we're like, okay, well, it's so hard to take away these policies already in effect, when we could have nipped them in the bud as they were being made, so just trying to be inclusive of all the different people, gender and sexual orientation groups out there that might be affected by negative policies, like not just state and local, but within the workplace. I was looking at an article with McKinsey and Company. They're like a huge marketing and diversity, equity, inclusion research group that work with a lot of ginormous big conglomerate companies. Basically, like it takes a framework, right? Not just a person saying, yeah, of course we're equal, and we, when we're doing the interviewing process, we do things, but what are we doing that's intentional in the interview process that makes sure that shows that, hey, we are inclusive here, we are thinking of wanting you to feel protected and valued so that you can create valuable work, right? It's not just like,
no, absolutely.
yeah, I mean, it's not, because I think from, a more conservative perspective, and I've heard this from others, is like, well, if you're just working, you just expect that person to work, then that's fine. But at the end of the day, there's these coffee break discussions, those water cooler talks, like, hey, how are you doing with your wife or husband? Are we saying
Absolutely.
spouse?
Yeah,
And
it's our society is built around a heteronormative society. Yeah, in our workplaces, just like in any setting, people are going to talk openly about their spouses as long as it's a heterosexual or heteronormative relationship. And someone who's queer might take pause and say, can I say
like,
this?
yeah, can
I have a
be able to
picture
do
of my
that?
wife on my desk? So yeah, I think that's so important. I love that the it's the McKinsey group,
McKinsey
yeah?
and Company, yeah,
McKinsey and Company.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that they're doing that.
they obviously to highlight LGBTQ and Pride this month, they bring out, but they do have a lot of good resources and research for really large companies. But I mean, even as a small business owner, and you're trying to look for good help, you're trying to look for people with great technical skills, and you found this one person, but in the interviewing process, be mindful of the types of verbiage that you use, and when you're asking about family and children, what do you do with your spouse, or what do you do with your time, and like how to be mindful of how that conversation could go south if you're not very well versed in, communicating with certain communities, and not just with the LGBTQ community, but with, other ethnic groups as well, you know.
Mm-hmm.
In this framework, they talk about, creating authenticity, like from the employee perspective. They're wanting to create authenticity, a belonging, and with that, creating meaningful work, which I think in the last episode we talked about how work is just such an ingrained part of our lives, but from the work perspective, we're wanting to generate leaders with acceptance, creating camaraderie among their employees, and then also finding fairness. Are we listening to both sides? It's so easy to be on one side or the other, just be like, be done with it because that one sounds like the best argument to go with. But to sit down with two individuals who may be having an issue with each other and to listen to both sides. Let me hear your side of the story. Let me hear your side of the story. Now, what do you guys think about that? I don't even say anything. I'm like, tell me what you think about that situation. And I think having that fairness along all lines, even in the LGBTQ community, is super important. I mean, just because you have someone who may be, like you said, in the gay community or the trans or lesbian community, if you sit them at a table together, they may have completely different perspectives. We may not always get along, but if we can listen to each other at the table, obviously, the study finds that they're more likely to help out a coworker or to stay at that job longer. So you're gonna get that return, right? And that's the bottom line, is that you're gonna get your return on your employee and the work you're getting.
No, yeah, I love it. I think that's so important. So, it is Pride Month, and this is our Pride episode, Megan.
Yeah,
so
I'm a little sad I'm not wearing all my Pride gear. I didn't really think about it. I was in a rush onto this call, y'all.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
I'll wear it next time. It's because it's not just Pride in June. We're going to be... So in July, I'll wear my Pride stuff.
Absolutely. Do it. But I am curious, what is something that you are proud of?
Proud of? Podcast. That's what I'm proud of. I'm proud.
What?
A fan. I don't know what else I have.
This podcast with this cute mug.
$5. Help support our podcast. Insert sponsor here. Yeah, no, I'm definitely proud of this podcast. I'm proud of you, Maddie. I mean, this is, in a lot of ways, have been a really, it can be emotionally just hard to come out and tell about, some difficult things that has happened to you in the past. And so to like make something out of that is, honestly incredible. Like I'd say it's extremely difficult to do something, make something out of your trauma, so that's what I'm proud of and honored. So thank you, Maddie. Thank you.
Aww.
What are you proud of?
No, I love that. I think when we talk about this idea of pride, things you're proud of, obviously I'm proud of this podcast as well, and I'm proud of us. But I think pride can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. And I know for me that it has sometimes shifted, even month to month. But I think I'm proud of me and just like all the hard work I have put into everything that I do and being able to have something to show in terms of my accomplishment. But I also think for me, Pride Month is about my identity. It took a while for me to feel comfortable being the queer person that I am in the different spaces of my life.
Right.
There were always times that maybe I was a little bit more queer in some spaces and then I was more reserved in other spaces. But I think I have really, especially in the past year and a half, I've been really kind of figuring out what my queer identity is as a professional and not just as a person. and how those two things can coexist in the same person.
It's like a lot of de-stress for you, you know, because that can be extremely stressful where you have to like that switching, you know, where you feel like you have to switch to be a complete new personality or person just to feel accepted within certain groups, you know, is yeah, I think that this month, you know, it's not always a happy month. You know, it's not always a happy month for people because we have to remember there are people out there who are still struggling with being able to come out because of fear of losing everything that they value, you know, families, the people they love, work, all the years and years of service that they have done to certain groups and organizations, and just simply coming out and just being their whole self. You know, people are ugly sometimes and they can take that away from them. And I want to stress that, you know, everyone is at different levels in their journey. You do not have to be, you know, if those little baby steps is what it takes to get to where you want to be or to find those levels of support, then that's where you should be, you know?
No, I definitely agree. And I think you touched on a really important thing and coming out. And, you know, it sounds, you know, a lot of times people are like, I don't want to talk about coming out. I've already come out. But coming out is unique to everyone. And honestly, it's an ongoing process. And sometimes we have to do it over and over again. And especially as you are sort of learning new things about yourself. I recently, and I think Megan, I had shared this with you. So I recently was at an event and I'm comfortable with who I am. Those of you that don't know me, I tend to have a more tomboyish appearance to me. I do prefer to wear men's clothing. That's sort of my gender expression. But I have never been called a mask presenting lesbian. And so I was at this event and I was interacting with someone. We were having like this really great conversation and they sort of included me in that space. And I was taken aback. I was like, am I? Am I a mask? And it was sort of this new thing that I had to kind of re-come out even to myself because I was like, I am. I totally am.
Yeah.
And I even like told my wife and she was like, I don't understand why you're so like, I think of you as a mask presenting queer.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
And I had just never used that terminology before. It was sort of a new notion in myself that I had to sort of find that and say like, yeah, that is me. I say all of that to say like coming out is an ongoing process and it is unique for everyone.
Right.
And there's also not like a timeline of when someone has to come out. We've got some people that like they come out of the womb with their rainbow flags and we have other people who don't come out until later in life. And so it looks different for everyone. That was a huge tangent of probably too much information about myself, but I think it's important. I think it's important to acknowledge that during Pride Month, a lot of people are thinking about who they are, their identities, and that's going to spill out into their workplaces, of course.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I mean, a coworker or a leader may just be like, you know, like they might be interested. They might want to know a little bit more about yourself, and you're like, you know what? This is so ingrained as a part of myself. I think from a Hispanic or Latino Latina perspective, it could be like, you know, where are you from? And that kind of thing, you know, where are you from really? And you're like, well, I'm from here, you know, or even like what type of Latino or Latina you are. But I think like ways that could one make those make those into safer conversations. And, not thinking, hey, pride is just something that we highlight our LGBTQ folks in June, is like making internal chapters, if you're a large enough company, or even like, because there's, or even supporting chambers of commerce. There's the Black Chamber of Commerce. There's the Hispanic or Latino Chamber of Commerce. There's the LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce. And so different like ways of supporting business professionals, not just internal employees, but also supporting, outside chapters as well. And as a small business owner, maybe ways of highlighting the people you work with is just making sure that we're taking like small online courses of how to have conversations, safe conversations. What does it look like on the positive and negative side of what our language could do to hurt people without even realizing it through bias? It doesn't have to be coming from like these huge companies like McKinsey and Company, where it would cost like maybe thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to get your employees have that type of education and training. But there's so many like local nonprofit and groups that'll help you get to where you want to be.
You touched on a really great thing in terms of trainings and things we can do to build awareness. And I absolutely agree with that. I think it's so important. A lot of times when we think about June, on one hand, yeah, we're excited because there's a lot of pride events and all of this, but it also over the years sometimes becomes very corporatized. And it is kind of like, okay, well, they're only in support of our community during June. And as long as they're making money, but they're not actually doing anything for the community.
Right.
And in some instances, we've even learned that it's organizations who they're saying they're for the queer community, but then they're donating money to organizations who promote hate towards the community.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, what are you doing? I think it ties back into this idea of how are you not just being welcoming, but affirming. And that is important to think about in the workplace even, right? How do your HR forms show that you're an inclusive workplace?
Yeah.
Are you including pronouns on email signatures? When we talk about trainings from other organizations, there could even be someone within your company that could organize a training. How are we propping up these marginalized voices?
Right.
Empower them to be proud of who they are and not feel the shame that oftentimes comes with being an other.
Yeah, absolutely.
So no, I think just it's important to be safe in our workplaces and our communities. So
it just creates such a large impact on our mental well-being, like if I'm going to spend 8 to 9 hours in a place where I'm just like walking on eggshells the entire time, I'm going to go home and feel awful. Like, I'm going to feel awful, but it's like not everyone has the resources or the support to just quit their job, right? Like we're talking about, these are people at all levels of professionals, people who may be working hourly, low income, middle class. Like it's not just happening to middle and upper class people. Like these are a lot of times they get stuck in a cycle of having low wages and therefore not being able to get great health care and getting child support for their children. Because yes, these communities, they do have families, they have children that they're having to support. So when we're thinking about these trainings and things, it can feel a bit overwhelming, especially if you're like, I don't know if I want to take that much time into it, because especially you're like, I don't want to sit in an 8-hour training. 1 hour a month isn't going to hurt you. Okay. And just being like, I'm going to dedicate 1 hour to my calendar of different types of courses on LGBTQ
Oh my
framework
gosh,
stuff.
no. I have an even better solution, Megan.
Let's hear it.
Spending 30 minutes every other week listening to the podcast, Not a Lonely
What?
Coffee Break.
Did we just give ourselves a plug?
I think we did.
Yeah, I mean, just
can be
simply.
so helpful for you.
Mhm.
Sometimes having these hardships about how am I queer in the community, or in my workplace, how am I proud of that, and how is my workplace letting me be my authentic self?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Before I finish this cup of coffee that I have in my cute little mug, I am curious, Megan, are you doing anything to celebrate Pride? Or have you already done anything to celebrate Pride?
So far this month, I have not. I think that, I just like doing little small gatherings with my friends, Arlington Pride kind of fell on my birthday weekend, so I couldn't get out there.
Birthday.
It's my birthday. But it was also 95, 98 degrees outside, so I wasn't feeling it.
It really
hot.
it really has been so hot that
Yeah.
it really does make you think, like, do I really want to go to this outdoor event?
Yeah, because it can get pretty hot out there. But
Yeah.
I think by the end of this month I will go to, probably some local things. I think sometimes when I find that I can't like go out and support at an event, I often just go and support like a donation to a group locally. There's a couple places in Arlington that I like to follow, and in Dallas, so I usually try to give them a donation or some sort of gift to help them move forward, or even a shout out on social media, like honestly, y'all, if you guys are like, I don't know how to do Pride, I don't want to go to a parade, because sometimes people don't like to be around that many people, which is fine because it is a large gathering. Or maybe you don't want to go to the bars or the clubs, that's fine. Just find your LGBTQ friends and be like, let's go out to dinner. Let's go out to dinner. Let's just celebrate us, or like just, go on Instagram and tag a couple of organizations in your area and just support them that way. I mean, that in itself shows that, it shows that you're a safe person to come to. And then secondly, it helps those organizations thrive, right? So
No,
there's all sorts of
absolutely.
different ways to get that out there.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think my wife and I, we did brave the heat and go to the parade this year, which I feel like there were a lot more organizations present than there had been in previous years, I thought.
Yeah.
And so we had a really great time, but we actually also went to an event at the Arboretum.
Ooh.
Where they also invited out some vendors and had like a little vendor fair.
That's fun.
And what I really liked about it was that I don't know, I didn't speak to every single vendor there, but I do know that the vendors I did speak with, many of them were members of the LGBTQ plus community. And so it was really awesome to be able to learn more about their little small business. And then I was supporting my community that way. So
Yeah.
If you are a small business owner, or you have a favorite small business that is LGBTQ plus owned that you want others to support during Pride Month, let us know, because we want to make sure we are spreading the word about these awesome LGBTQ
And the love.
Owned businesses and supporting them the best that we can, especially during Pride Month. What better time?
Yeah.
But I do think that is about all the coffee I can drink today. Megan, I don't know about you.
Bottoms up.
Officially empty.
We're done.
But thank you guys so much for joining us. And hopefully our conversation today got you thinking about what Pride means to you and some things that you are proud of.
I was like, I had to pull them out.
Oh, Megan finally has her Pride things.
I know, I was sad. Like I said, I didn't think about it. But that's why I'm always supporting, okay? So
yeah.
I just didn't think about it.
Make sure you're connected with us on our socials so that you never miss an episode. And we hope that you will continue joining us for Not a Lonely Coffee Break. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Megan.
And if you have not already hit that subscribe button, make sure you do that.
Down below.
And join our community of coffee drinkers.
Yes.
Yeah,
we will see you next time, y'all.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.